Hey, so I just wanted to come on and I suppose read a bit of my book, read a bit of the reality to what you go through when living in domestic violence or domestic abuse. One, to show why I speak like I do, why I get so passionate at injustice, to expose the aftermath, because I don't believe you can go through all of that, then just get out and be free. This was part of your life, it was inbuilt, this regime. And this is what I call the aftermath as a non-doctor, non-expert, but this is the reason to why. But I also understand that what I do is triggering. It can affect people who have once lived this and understand it, because it opens up a portal. It creates emotions and feelings in them which are buried beneath, you know? So if you live through abuse and you're not quite there in your journey, I encourage you to swipe on and not partake if you feel like you want to watch it. Or how can I expose the aftermath and the mental torment someone will go through when they've lived abuse without going there and exposing all of it? Because with those story, with what happened, how can you not feel and suffer the way we do? But we spend our life in the aftermath suffering like that in silence because we're scared to do this and bring this to people, to show the real stripped back, raw, painful events we went through. And this is why we struggle in a silent room. We apologize to objects. We're scared and we have to nip stuff in the bud all the time. We overthink everything we say and do because it was inbuilt in us in that life of abuse, you know? So trigger warning. And like I always say, you know, when your life comes with a trigger warning, when you try and explain to people, this it says it all, you know? And I speak upon people out on the main stage, and this is why I struggle with their lack of humble in the life that they have and how they don't know they're born, because a lot of people are born into this, you know? So trigger warning. Please turn away if you're not ready and you don't feel safe in listening to these words that once was my life, which I now, they empower me to share them, because I feel the more people that hear the connections to my past, to my aftermath, it helps them find peace, validation in why we do what we do current day, in how by understanding it, in my opinion, in my way, I've been able to nip it in the bud, red flag, and pin it to my trauma, my PTSD, my aftermath, which helps me to segregate it away whilst also understanding it's always going to be there, but I now have control of every bit that I've found, I've connected, and I search for more connections to make me in the now feel less consumed by my beginning, you know? I was still in fear. I wasn't safe. He could come and demand me back. Does he even know where I've gone? An hour later, when they came, there had been to them, then round to me. It's okay, they said, all sorted now. Your mum and dad are all good, nothing is wrong. See, this was and is the thing with DV. As quiet as a mouse she became when the police were near. For times they had taken him away before he was released the next day and allowed home. She had no choice but to let him back in. It was easier to stay quiet. The shame and blame that little girl carried, the hurt and letdown having to grow up so fast. This was cruel. My mom's soul was gone, and slowly ours too were diminishing in front of her eyes. A broken down family, all for one man. This is why we giggled around the table and wished him gone, for this was pure hell. I had to return home and leave the safety of my friends, walk back in and face the wrath of trying to protect them and myself. It was not worth it. I could see why Mom was quiet. Not really much help around us, nowhere to go. Walking past the hedges, looking at the blue gate, feeling the neighbours' blinds twitching one by one. Let's face it, we were the neighbours from hell, and I was The daughter of the neighbours who wake up the street in the dead of night to police cars screaming and crying. Or maybe they didn't look at me that way. Maybe they wanted to protect us, to help us, to save us, but it was easier to look away. I felt better taking the negative. That felt comfortable to me. Would have been worse to know they all wanted to help protect us, to save us, to pull us away, yet we were still there. Walking past their windows, red swollen eyes, after all the commotion, all for what? Oh yes, good old happy families. That's what, like my body hadn't just been exposed to that fear, and now a double helping of shame and blame and guilt. That was it, over and done. Left with damage for a lifetime, like rejecting a compliment and wanting to blend in, never being brave enough to have my own opinion and always thinking I'm never enough. Like people are watching me in disgust, like my neighbours that day twitching the blinds. This would all come back and visit me in my aftermath one day. Yay, I had all this to come. You know, in picking apart the reality, my story, I understand why I have spent a big chunk of my adult life bringing the hate, feeling that shame, that blame, and that's because that was comfortable for me. That's what I knew in how my life should be. That's what I was brought up to feel every day. And I've said it before, you know, the seasons change. We go from hot to cold. We get poorly, we catch a cold. I was living in hypervigilant states, fight or flight, constantly back and forth. You know, surely that's going to connect in the same kind of way where we get poorly because of the confusion as our mind breaks down. Because in these moments, our body literally shut down. Then it was back to happy families again. This is going to affect us in the long term. And what I found over the years with doctors saying PTSD, it's just words. It didn't connect to me until sitting at a laptop and writing my story and seeing it full view there on my screen in black and white, in what he actually did to me, and how I will do all I can to unravel this confused mind that he's left inside, and that empowers me. And that's why I want to share it with you, and not so much of a trigger but a glimmer in how we can and we have pulled through even to this day. But I don't want people to just survive. I want them to find the tools to be able to thrive. But I'm not a doctor, not an expert. I lived it. This is my expertise in growing up in abuse and understanding the confused, you know? So, yeah.